Hello.
Hello. Happy Wednesday.
Nice
Here
to see
we are
you.
live in our live stream.
We
How's
are
it
still
going today?
alive.
Huh?
We are still alive.
We are still alive and doing our live. So we are Dave and Laura Butler. Thank you for joining us. And if you're on the recording, thank you for joining us on the recording. We provide customized individual, team, and organizational coaching to get at topics such as the one that we're talking about today.
Hmm.
And this one is, we're calling it experiential in the moment development. Explain what we mean by that, Dave.
Well, I think it means rather than going someplace and learning about something in, um, it's like a discrete situation. It's learning by doing. It's learning by being in the moment. It's realizing that most of the things that we approach on a daily basis are filled with opportunities for us to learn. And in fact, the best way to learn is to fail. So this is such a switch from. I mean, when we went to school, and I mean, most everybody that's alive today went to school in an era that said, here's the way to do it. Learn this, memorize this, understand this by rote, so that you can regurgitate it and say, here's the right way to do it. We live
Well,
in a world,
I always like
where that doesn't work anymore.
I always like to mention that there is a place for discrete training,
Yeah.
the formality of training, because we all have to learn and we all have to, we don't just jump into our work that we do without a lot of backup.
Right. There's a foundation piece for training, which has to do with like learning the language before you enter into creative writing.
But what happens is it falls short on the developmental stages of the way that you apply what you've learned.
Right. The way that you learn on another level, the sort of the wisdom level of actually doing it. And there's a lot of things that you can't learn in a school environment. It's not possible to recreate. The thing that occurs to me is I was reading an article about SEAL teams, the Navy SEALs.
Mm.
Now they go through a potload of training. I mean, guns and ammo and strategies and sneaking around and breaking into places, whatever they have to do to get the job done. But the real training that they go through is like outward bound. I mean, they land them in the middle of the desert someplace and say, here's what you got to survive on. Let's see what you do in a week.
Well, there's to do that. There's emotional, physical, mental training. So it's almost the same. You could look at metaphorically, in the way that we help people with the coaching that we do. And the number of times that I invite people to give me a call when something is going sideways and they don't quite know where to go. They don't take me up on that. And I think my assumption is because they don't have it all worked out.
Right. They don't think that they've got the right answer, so they don't want to call and talk to you about it, which is completely ridiculous because we're here to help you figure it out.
When it's not all worked out.
Yeah.
So I like this, that, this is your quote. Don't wait for things to be stable to learn how to deal with chaos.
Did I say that?
You said that.
Oh, wow. Pretty smart.
In
other words, well, how are you going to learn about something if you're not in the middle of it?
Yeah.
Now, I can learn principles, I could learn ideas, I could learn skills that I can utilize, but to really learn how to deal with chaos or change or anything that's going on is to do it in the middle of when it's going on. The reason we came up with this topic is because so many times over the years, I've said to people, here's the things that we should do and we should work on. And they said, well, that sounds great, Dave, but things are in such chaos right now. Why don't we wait until everything settles down to do that? And it just makes no sense at all. Number one, because things are never going to settle down anyway. And number two, because while they're in a mess, now's the time to learn.
Especially now, that we're waiting for things to get back to the way it was or to whatever that is, and the other thing that I think is important when you think about training and the topic of training versus development is I realize when our tool of choice is the Berkman method, and there are scores. There are some people have lower scores and some people have higher scores. And almost immediately, it's what we've learned. Well, it must be wrong if I'm low.
Right.
There's no right or wrong there, but what we've learned over the years is that the higher score gets you the good grade.
Right. And the
So
good grade gets you the good job, and the good job gets you the good money, and on and on and on. It's a linearity, which is what training is about. You learn for first part, second part, third part. It's a linear kind of learning. Development, on the other hand, is not linear. It's global. It's connected. It's interconnected. It's networked. It's never the same way twice. So you need to be able to understand and learn by allowing yourself to not go through it in a linear way, but to experience it. So that's why we use the word experiential.
Well, I think this slide that we've had for quite a while, I think really sets the stage for this conversation.
Yeah.
So again, we are Dave and Laura Butler of Work Life Consulting. If you're joining us on the recording, we provide individual, team, organizational, experiential learning and coaching that's customized to help all three aspects.
I always like this graphic because most organizations suffer from the fact that they start with the organization and they drive it down to the team, and then the team drives it down to the individual. But that's not development, that's training. We're going to train you to do a certain job. Development is inside out. It starts with me, and I have to take responsibility for that development. I think that's why so many people back off of it, because they're waiting for somebody to tell them what to go to do. We go to college. We have a daughter-in-law starting in college today. She goes through a series of classes. You go through class number 1, then class number 2, and then class number 3. That's training. But development, she wants to be nursing. Development for her is when she's going to be in the ER, working all night, and because there's an emergency somewhere. That's where you learn how to use the skills.
Well, I think the graphic here, I really like this too, because training, this organizational kickoff, it takes a long time for it to reach the self.
Yeah, we're going to roll out the new program. Oh boy, here it comes.
And look at all the layers to get to the individual.
Yeah.
Versus the development piece starts here and then will spread out into the organization. So I think it's so important that we take a look and help organizations. And one of the best ways is that we support failure.
Yes.
It's we've got to be a learning organization.
Make a mistake, please.
And learn from, that's why the in the moment stuff is hard to do, because people don't want to look bad.
Yeah, that's right. I don't even want to admit that I screwed up. But if I don't do that, I never have a chance to really learn from it.
Well, one of our favorite books and one of our favorite thought leaders is Amy Edmondson. We've talked about her on our live streams before, but her book is Teaming to Innovate. And this is what she says in the book. These are the 5 steps for teaming to innovate. Why don't you go through this? And I've got the book at the ready.
The first step is to aim high. Do more than you think you're capable of. Reach out and aim high. Team up, bring other people in with you, work together, collaborate. And if you fail well, really get out there and stink up the joint. Make a big mess. But learn from that, learn fast, and then go back and repeat. One of the best things that I've seen recently was a theater institute up in Connecticut. Their motto on the sign outside of the National Theater Institute says, risk, fail, risk again.
Yeah.
If I'm not willing to take a risk, I risk everything. Risk is important to learning, because if I don't take a risk and I don't fail, I never really have a chance to learn.
And I think the other piece to this is, we tend to gravitate towards, I say we, this is an assumption, but status quo. Oh, everything's good now. Everybody's happy. Everybody gets along until they don't.
Until reality settles in.
And so what we have to do is be prepared for what the future is going to bring, because the future, whatever that is is going to impact the relationships that are all good right now.
Yeah.
So it's always being ready and aiming high. I think that's the real innovation message. How do we innovate? We aim high. We don't stay where we are. In order to do that, you team up. You get your group together. You get your peers. You get vertical, up and down. Allow for others to step in and grow. Guide them in the process. Ask for what you want to do as
Get
you
feedback.
Get feedback
Along the way. I mean, that's one of the most important things that I think we fall short of in all of the organizations that I've ever worked for, is that they don't actively go out of their way to get feedback. What do you think? How do you think that went? What could I learn from this? How can I do this better? What did you think about how that went? We're afraid to ask for it because we think we're going to be judged or something. But without feedback, without a feedback-rich environment in an organization today, you're definitely going to fail in a bad way, because you're not going to be able to understand what's going on.
in our training. I mean, not training. Our coaching is based on experiential learning. We like to give people, that have them, like you were saying before, it's not so much scenarios, because scenarios can be rehearsed.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, getting into a situation that may not be very comfortable in the moment, and then seeing what risk did you take? What went well? How did you? So I've recommended that the leaders I coach, they keep a journal and keep track of the things that went well and things not so much that didn't go as well. And then we have something that we can really dive into and look at with Berkman scores, with our work together, with coaching.
I think every project, if not every day, but at least every project, should have a debrief, a solid, really in-depth debrief to say, what did we learn? And share that learning. What did we learn today? What have you learned today? What have I learned today? What did we learn together today?
Absolutely. Well, that's our message for this week. And thank you for joining and listening, whether it be on the recording or in the moment.
Yeah, I'd like to make a plea for in the moment, because we offer that. We talk with a lot of our clients about it. We're here. I'd much rather deal with something in the moment than a week later trying to figure it out what went wrong. Call me now and let's work it out now. This is when you need the coaching, or have someone in your team available to you to learn from them.
Right.
In the moment.
We offer that. So, this is on our website. You could sign up for a session, a 30-minute in the moment coaching session, where we can help you kind of work through some things that might be struggles, or advise you on what might be a next step for a risk that you might take, and get ready to fail. Failure is a good thing.
We applaud failure.
We do.
But we don't accept it. There's a difference between accepting failure and applauding it, learning from it, and moving forward. I think that's one of the funny. I'll tell you just a quick story, because we got 1 minute left. The famous statement is that supposedly during Apollo 13, the guy that was in charge in Houston, Houston, we got a problem, supposedly said failure is not an option. Actually, what he said was, failure is an option, but we're not deciding to allow it to determine what we're going to do. The failure had already happened. Failure is an option. We can accept it if we want, or we can not accept it, and we can go figure out a better way to deal with it. So don't let failure be an option for you.
Homework, go watch that film.
Go watch Apollo 13. Yeah, it's one of the best ever. Yeah. One of the best.
Thanks, everybody, for joining. See you next time.
Bye.